Hey everybody, welcome to PC Perspective. We're here to talk about a retail GeForce GTX 970 graphics card from MSI, in particular the GTX 970 Gaming Edition that you see here. It has the very distinctive red and black coloring scheme that MSI has gone with for their gaming products, including motherboards and graphics cards. Doesn't quite get across the NVIDIA branding as well as NVIDIA would like, I guess, but in terms of MSI branding, it does very well there. Now this is a card that was actually released along with the GTX 970 and 980 cards back in the September timeframe, but now that cards are back in stock and they seem to be easy to get, it makes sense to start taking a look at those various retail options out there. Now, of course, as the gaming edition, this card does come overclocked out of the box. You're looking at a base clock speed of 1,114 megahertz and a boost clock of 1,253 megahertz. Those are increases over the reference speeds of 1050 and 1178 respectively. The 4 gigabytes of memory on the card still runs at the same clock speed, so you're not seeing any differences there. But you'll get a modest boost in performance out of the box with this card as opposed to a reference GTX 970. In terms of pricing, this is $349, which is actually pretty competitive compared to the reference card prices. If you can find those are kind of in the $329 range. That tends to be the bottom for GTX 970 cards selling today. So you're only paying about $20 more for this card, and you get higher clocks, and obviously you get a better cooler design. If you look through, if you look around the card, I mean, you can clearly see through these massive heat pipes on the back that this cooler is different than what NVIDIA has in its reference design. It's much better, in fact. It's quieter. It keeps the GPU temperatures down as well. These heat pipes can get hot during use, so if you have an open test bed, keep that in mind. The two large fans on here can rotate at fairly low speeds as well to, again, keep that GPU cool without raising noise levels. You still have an 8-pin and a 6-pin power connector, and then for display connectivity, you kind of have the NVIDIA standard of 2 DVI connections, an HDMI, and a full-size DisplayPort. Now keep in mind that because of that, you'll only be able to support one G-Sync monitor at a time if you wanted to go that route, because there is only one DisplayPort connection. Maybe not something that a ton of you are going to be doing, but something to keep in mind. If we look at performance of this card and compare it to what else is out there in the ecosystem, you've got to compare it to the 970 reference. It's going to be a little bit faster than it, anywhere from 1 to 3 to 4% or so, just based on those clock speed changes. But obviously the real competition is in the form of the Radeon R9 290 and 290X. Because of those price drops, both of those cards could be considered as alternatives to a card like this MSI 970 Gaming. For example, you can find R9 290 cards selling today for like $299 to $289, and you can find 290X cards selling for as low as $389. So you're talking about only $40 or $50 more for a 290X, a retail 290X, as opposed to this GTX 970 gaming card from MSI. If you look at the performance though, it's kind of a mixed bag. It goes back and forth depending on the specific application you're looking at. For example, Crysis 3, both the R9 290 and the 290X are actually a little bit faster than a GTX 970, so that's worth noting. In Battlefield 4, the GTX 970 is actually performing a little bit better. It's almost on par with the GTX 970. Or I'm sorry, the GTX 970 is almost on par with the R9 290X rather. And if you look at Metro Last Light, the 970 is kind of between those two. It's faster than the R9 290 and slower than the R9 290X. So depending on the game, depending on which settings and resolutions you're going to run at, this card is going to be somewhere in the performance area between the 290 and the 290X, in my opinion, which, again, AMD has done a very good job of promoting their cards and making them very price aggressive, whereas NVIDIA falls back on their performance, their features performance rather, and all the lower noise levels, lower power consumption, everything that goes along with the new Maxwell architecture. Speaking of that, the card is very quiet. Running at idle or running under full load, 1 to 2 decibels increase is all it takes, or is all that shows up there. Very quiet, much quieter than the reference designs, and quieter than most of the R9 290 or 290Xs, and obviously using less power while doing so at the same time. Overclocking capability of this card was really impressive. Now your mileage is going to vary, depends on what specific chip you are getting. I was able to run this card at a 250 megahertz offset using just the standard 87 millivolt overclocking capability, overvolting capability that Afterburner or Precision X gives you. But a 250 megahertz offset raises the base clock to 1364 megahertz, and then the boost clock is over 1500 megahertz. And at those settings, you're looking at performance differences of anywhere from 8 to 11% from the overclock settings of this gaming card to the standard stock settings out of the box with this card. So that's easy performance increase. All you're doing is moving some sliders in software, and pretty good results, keeping the GPU nice and cool, again thanks to the updated cooler design and heat pipe design of the MSI GTX 970 gaming. Overall, I do think this is a fantastic iteration of a retail GTX 970. There's lots of competition out there. You've got cards from Asus and EVGA and a bunch of other people out there, and that's just on the NVIDIA side. Lots of competition on the AMD side. But for people who they've kind of already decided that the GTX 970 is the card that they want. It's the performance level and the price level they want. I think the MSI GTX 970 gaming is probably one of the best you can consider. Go to PCPer.com, check out the full review. We have more pictures and benchmarks and anything you might want to see in regards to power consumption or sound testing as well. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.